afternoon, everyone. Many thanks to Moderator Chen for your kind chairmanship of the session. Many thanks to Prof. Zhang and also Dr. Dong for this kind invitation to be able to share with you guys. Thank you so much. Please allow me to share screen. Today I'll be speaking on the case study of contemporary Japan, particularly in the use of CivicTech in Japan, focusing on the case study primarily within the Kanto area in the city of Tokyo. In Japan, CivicTech is typically defined as a citizen who is using IT to solve a local community problem. So there is a great accent on local community issues, especially challenges. So in terms of mindset, the CivicTech practitioners like the NPO, in Japan, they prefer to use the term NPO rather than NGO because there is a sort of tendency for NGOs to collaborate in a positive manner with the authorities. Therefore, they prefer to use non-profit organizations rather than non-governmental organizations. One of these examples is Code for Japan that tries to change the idea that members of the public, when they come across an administrative problem or local community issue, that instead of the local authorities, in fact, residents and citizens can actually take up to find a solution for such a problem. So they are saying basically that there should be more citizenry involvement and also the citizenry involvement should not have excessive reliance on limited state resources. And those state resources, on the other hand, can be better deployed elsewhere. Therefore, there's a very powerful civil society sort of a tendency when it comes to civic tech practice, and saving public funds is certainly one of the major goals of the civic tech community. So in empowering the local community to save their own, to solve their own challenges, many civic techs are trying to raise civic consciousness, especially in metropolitan cities like Tokyo. This is because many residents are actually migrant workers. They have very shallow roots in the local communities. Now, I've just checked the statistics for Tokyo. In fact, the foreign population of Tokyo is growing 32 times faster than the ability of the local community to replenish themselves due to the aging population. Therefore, the migrant worker population is going to become increasingly important in metropolitan centers like Tokyo. So one civic tech practitioner, Mami Inomoto, says that we have to empower these people, make them care for the place they live in. Otherwise, they'll be apathetic to society problems in the country. So the whole idea is to let them think for themselves and solve the community problems without much reliance on the authorities. In many cases, civic tech initiatives are not just about solving problems per se, but they also want to have demonstrative power in building alternative tech prototypes and solutions to highlight simply that alternative approaches are possible instead of any big governmental approach. So there's a sort of a strong subjectivity to the way they carry out the projects, relying on themselves and on their own resources. Shibata, who is part of the Code for Ibaraki, oversees a 5 civic tech initiative, and he's a good example of how civic tech practitioners want to assist residents in his region with tech solutions. As the manager of Civic Tech Cafe, which holds a monthly gathering for civic tech enthusiasts to have dialogues on open data and also civic tech hacking activities, and tries to be more inclusive to pull in members of the community to participate. So civic tech hackathons are often organized by civic techies to come up with prototypes that can refine and tackle social issues. So there's a strong interactivity between all stakeholders within the society, engaging and also interacting with the technical experts who are part of this CivicTech community to resolve macro challenges. In fact, because of the activity of the CivicTech community, it is starting to move, right? It is starting to gradually move some in the Japanese government who are warming up to CivicTech. So the authorities have actually established Japan's first open data portal in December 2013, and it is also an attempt to catch up with other advanced nations which have similar initiatives in this area. So changes in government thinking are also aligned with growing realization of how CivicTech can fill in the gap that are left open in technological developments, which were untouched by earlier waves of tech-friendly reforms. So there is a governmental reaction to what is happening in the civil society, particularly in the civic tech community. Others see a potential for even greater consensus. For example, Hiroyuki Seiki, the representative for Code of Japan, says that technical personnel alone, like the engineers, the computer engineers, the coders, the programmers, cannot achieve success on their own without support from sales, designers, promoters, and ordinary citizens and community members. So basically, he hopes that initiatives can be even more inclusive, coming from a variety of background, where you can have a sort of the optimal combination of technical capabilities as well as activists who can create more awareness to the social causes. So it's kind of like a combination of technical software as well as hardware. All these stakeholders can consolidate their skill sets together. This is because many of the contemporary problems that we are facing are multidisciplinary in nature. It cannot be resolved only by technical approach. Therefore, there has to be an ecology of different stakeholders coming together to forge closer bonds. So Civic Hall co-founder, for example, Sifri, argues that civic technologies are needed to lower the bar of entry for the public in order to take part in social activism and policies in all forms, having their voices heard on public issues. So again, there is also an increasing element of social activism in the way that the civic tech community in Japan defines the field. So let's take a look at one of the first case study in this presentation, which is the Code for Japan, the nonprofit organization, where Hiroyuki Seiki, the representative, says that his hope and his slogan for the organization is that society can think together and create together. So the society, the organization is mainly regional in nature. So it breaks up into cell-like organization. Each cell is autonomous of each other and tuned into local issues, right? If you look at the map of Japan, it's a very long country, and it ranges from subarctic temperatures to very tropical temperatures in Okinawa. The makeup are also very different. People in Kanto have a very different culture from people in Kansai. Some of them speak completely different dialect language in Kagoshima. So you need to have a lot of localization of the civic tech solutions when it comes to sort of trying to tune into the local issues. And this is where the cell organizations will come in useful. Now, these cell organizations then will come together in the annual Code for Japan Summit, where local brigades from all over Japan will come together for sharing, especially with their specific issues from each region within Japan. So this helps to connect communities with governments. Many of these cells are volunteers. The operators are volunteers with a very few handful of full-time employees. And so there's also limited resources. Therefore, it helps to work with the local government in this sense, and to work with the local government to set up media platforms that can disseminate useful neighborhood and regional information for local residents. So there's a lot of sort of a leeway for collaboration with local authorities. Some of them, for example, Russell and Joe, they were managing different civic technological communities in Tokyo, and they came together jointly code a simple and easy to understand tracker of the COVID-19 cases in Japan. So you can also see that there is a trend that every time there is a disaster or a crisis in Japan, there is opportunity and potential for the civic tech community to come in to help with and supplement government services. Now, the key word is supplement. They do not intend to take over services that government departments, particularly local branches of government departments, are doing, because Japan does have a rather efficient as well as respected authorities and bureaucracy when it comes to whether it comes to local authorities or national governments. But there are rooms for improvement, and it is the room for improvement that's where the civic tech finds its niche to come in. Another disaster in which the civic tech community was able to sort of raise its profile and increase its, the public awareness of its existence was none other than the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake, which was the triple disasters of earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear reactor meltdown. In both cases, whether it's COVID-19 or the Great East Japan earthquake, the civic tech community had a very important role to disseminate information, open access information, to provide accurate information to everyone. So Namie town was a good example in the Great East Japan earthquake, when much of the town was sealed off due to the disaster, and many evacuated residents were not privy to what was happening in their hometown in Namie. And this is where the civic tech community came in, and they started the app Namie Newspaper, which is a de facto town newspaper that digitizes and communicate news to the masses via a social media. It's a very simple concept, but yet eminently popular amongst the townsfolk in order to understand what is truly happening in their town that has been struck by triple disasters of tsunami, earthquake, and nuclear meltdown. In the same way, the Fukushima nuclear meltdown was one such example in which a civic tech community came in to be able to provide information to the townsfolk. And in addition to that, because of the scale of the disaster, central and local governments, as well as the Tokyo Electric Power Company that runs the Fukushima nuclear reactor, were also voluntarily providing open access information, including vertical and oblique area photographs, to the civic tech community and the public, allowing the civic tech community to curate data and information sources for anyone to use. So there is also, again, collaboration in the crisis, as one stereotypical saying would go, that crisis in the Japanese language, which uses a Chinese character, is made up of both opportunity and danger in the same word. And indeed, the civic tech is trying to look at the opportunity that's presented to make society a better place in a post-disaster scenario. So open data initiatives makes machine readable data for secondary use. So basically, they are an information processor that takes the raw data that has been released by local governments after the disaster, and then process it so that it is easily accessible by the members of the public. Another example is Code for Sapporo's collaboration with the Hokkaido government that looks at a very simple challenge, which is bear spotting. Right, Hokkaido is a very vast land, and there's a tendency for bears to appear in urban settings. This is because of urbanization, humankind's habitat are getting closer and closer to the wild habitats in which the bears are found in, and therefore the bears have emerged in urban areas. And civic tech community sees this as an opportunity to work with the local community to curate and also disseminate information about bear spotting. Now, in Japan, many of the civic techies are not interested in commercially successful applications like blockchains or Industry 4.0 technological breakthroughs. In fact, some of them may even consider these commercialized or commodified aspects of technology to be crass, right? and they are much more socially conscious and not necessarily driven by profit making. Another example in Western Japan this time, in Kanazawa, is the 5374.jp, the NPO. Yes, Chairman Chen?
Thank you.
Yes?
Oh, I mean, 3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. Ending soon, thank you. So because of the sort of very unique way of garbage collection in Japan, everything is recycled. So for example, if you throw away a pen, you have to unscrew the metal part of the pen, separate it from the plastic part, separate it from the ink part in order to dispose of it, right? So many foreigners as well as out-of-towners may not be sort of used to this kind of highly separated trash for recycling, and therefore they create the 5374 app in order to ensure that members of the community, both foreigners, out-of-towners, as well as locals included, that they know how the trash is separated and when each collection is taking place. Because in Japan, they collect trash at different days for different kinds of trash, whether it's plastic, organic, metal, etc. Another example, which is truly a national project, is the Code for Japan's project for monitoring and mitigating COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. And in this project, the Civic techies work together with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. And what is special about this project is national in scope. So again, the very familiar sort of a practice or trend whereby disasters gives the opportunity for techies to come in to help create solutions in the process, also alleviating the problem and also increasing the profile of civic techies. What is also interesting is that in this case, the civic techies actually came up with the solution first to monitor and also to provide information about COVID-19 infections. And despite the fact that they came up with this software first, they voluntarily became secondary to the release of a state-backed application so that they become a supplement to the main application. There's no clash between them, and they made it so because the overarching aim is for a solution that can benefit society as a whole. Same case for the Idea Box, where they have created apps in which people can provide feedback, people from the public can provide feedback to the app in order to exchange information freely. The Contact Confirmation app is also another example in which proximity of infected individuals is provided on screen for people to use. So in this sense, I think what COVID-19 has released or unleashed is a good working relationship between the NPOs, particularly CivicTech communities, and the state agencies. And in fact, one of them was even given an award by the Cabinet Office in providing such social services. And this kind of working relationship appears to have good implications for future work to come. Perhaps this time they can collaborate more before the disaster and maintain and sustain the working relationship. With that, I've ended my presentation. Thank you, panel chair, and thank you everyone for your kind attention. I'll sign off here.